Greetings everyone, and as you can see I'm here today with Ganryu because I want to make an anti-Ganryu guide to maybe help you fight the character a little bit better. Currently the character has very high win rates online, but that's mainly because mainly due to the fact that he's new and maybe not too many people have kind of like legacy knowledge on him. He proved to be quite resilient to lab. It took me numerous revisits to his move list in order to kind of like understand what he does. Even though one of my friends plays Ganryu and he kind of like tried to help me understand him, it still took me like quite a while to figure him out. A lot of it has to do with how his move list is structured. I've talked about this numerous times. I really wish Namco could do something similar to what they do in their own kind of like other game, like Soul Calibur, where they present the move list in tabs. So like one suggestion would be like maybe strings would be listed individually, punishers, pokes, plus on block moves, so on and so forth. But the system that they currently have here, there is a system, but it's pathetic. Like input, like single button inputs, then double button inputs, then they start with direction. Of course they toss in a stance in here just because it's accessed by pressing 3+4, and then they toss in like forward plus a button, down, forward, down. This system, like, it sucks ass, okay? This system is horrible. And at least they kind of like list while standing moves. Of course they call them while rising. I'm not going to make this about command list, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, the command list doesn't help you understand the character. You have to like do it manually on your own. At least we have frame data, which makes the journey a little bit easier. And another reason as to why he proved difficult is because he's extremely unconventional. That's going to be like one of the major points of this topic, of this guide. He's very unconventional in both good and bad ways, but not to the point where you have to like relearn all of Tekken when you kind of like face him. He disobeys the rules, but not to the extent of like making you kind of like question your own existence. Okay, so one final point before I begin: I might not make a specifics part of this guide, mainly because it's going to be block punishment anyway, and I could link like a block punishment guide for Ganryu down in the comments or in the description from one of the YouTubers that I know, but I'm sure you can find one on your own. They're not very hard to come by. And I didn't find anything to help you or even help me punish him consistently. It's very difficult to differentiate between his mids and highs. They're all kind of like palm/hand strikes. There isn't anything like super apparent as to what is punishable, what is not. So sadly, that's one aspect that you just have to get good at on your own. I can't help you that much. Neither could I help myself. I still kind of like struggle when it comes to like realizing what is punishable, what is not. Although, of course, I'm going to talk about some of the highlights of his block punishment in this guide. So with that, let's begin. So starting with the super general, Ganryu, like I said, is extremely unconventional in both good and bad ways. He kind of like reminds me of something that Ares said when he was discussing Brian during the early days of Tekken 7. He said, like, on the surface he looks like an honest, direct character, but he's actually a rule-breaking bitch. Well, that does apply to Ganryu in numerous occasions, but like I said, it's going to do him some favors and disfavors in numerous positions. First of all, he's a troll character. He's designed to make you frustrated, okay? Look at the way he backs out. He's obviously trolling you. You're meant to kind of like feel bad for losing against this character because he's kind of like a clown or something. So that's part of his like design. Second, he already stands very low to the ground. Like, if you compare him like between him standing and crouching, that's not a particularly kind of like huge distance that he achieves compared to someone like King here, where he like Ganryu actually switches his head, you see. So he already stands pretty low. And he, despite his size, despite the fact that he's a huge dude, he's going to have no shortage of, no problems kind of like ducking under your highs and even crushing some of your mids. Even though it's not one of his highlight stances or something, but this sit stance, as you can see, look at what the frame data is saying. It says airborne. So this is one of those Eddie relax, lie on the ground kind of like situations where he's actually not considered crouching, but actually airborne. So you have to float him out of this. Even though, like I said, like this is not going to be the most important stance that he has, but I'm going to talk about that. So first of all, be wary about using highs against him. On the other hand, using lows is not the worst idea. I'm not saying spam lows. I'm saying connecting lows against him is going to be easier than other characters. He doesn't have a hop kick. He has a lot of tools, but a hop kick is not one of them. Speaking of what tools he has, his jab is 12 frames, both jabs, and that's one of the most famous things about him. His 10 frames actually headbutt, but it's punishable. I believe it's minus 13 or minus 12. So, but it does, as you can see, it does wall splat. His jab, namely his one jab, is like I said, 12 frames. It's plus 9 on hit and plus 3 on block. So it sacrifices startup frames for being much better on block and hit. Like I said, his headbutt is his 10 frames. He only has a one dick jab, but it has extremely short range, as all dick jabs do, and he accesses it by pressing down back one, which is of little concern to you if you're here to learn how to fight him. Like I said, doesn't have a hop kick. He has bad movement. His backdash doesn't cover a lot of space. His sidestep is of course horrible. He doesn't have a lot to compensate for this, apart from his like surprising crushing ability. He's going to have like this backswing blow of his leaves you back turned, and it's actually going to hurt. I advise you to duck after this to kind of like mitigate the damage, but it's still punishable because I'm going to talk about this later on, but well, maybe not. But it's still punishable. It's minus 14. So you have to play the frames against him, and that's going to like bleed into the strategy I'm going to recommend. Lows against him are not a horrible idea. Highs are risky. Mids okay, but make sure they're fast because he has fast mids of his own. And just play the frames against him. You have to out-frame him up close, because as I'm going to talk about later, he's going to make your life hell when he's close to you. You won't be able to step him in either direction without risking your life, or not your life, without risking getting hit. Like stepping him is almost useless up close. But when you're far away, the character is going to get transformed. So when it comes to his generic tools, like I said, he has this dick jab. When regards to punishment, even though his down forward 2 is 16 frames, and I'm going to show you how he can keep this pseudo safe, that's not his main block punishment. It's forward forward 1 plus 2, and as you can see it says there 13 frames. But because it's forward forward, realistically you won't be able to get it out quicker than 14. And if the Ganryu player is good and has some execution, he's going to be able to block punish minus 15, minus 14 stuff with this. And of course for a full launch. And this is because it's high, it's going to be safe. And from crouch, he has full crouch down forward 2. Again, he has while standing 2, which is 16. But full crouch down forward 2, it immediately tailspins, so the combo is not going to hurt that much. But still, it's a 14 frame while standing launcher. So his punishment is fantastic. He gets this for 10 frames. Of course, he can get something extra on counter hit, which I'm going to struggle to... He can get that, but I didn't connect it there, but you get the point. So don't give him anything to punish. Be wary about retaliating against him with highs all the time. Make sure you outframe him with your mids, and you know, kind of like you have a decent idea about your pokes, how plus they are on hit, how minus they are on block. And generally overall, like I said, using lows is not going to be the worst idea. So when it comes to overall strategy, before I dive into the specifics, this character up close is extremely annoying. Gladly he doesn't have a throw game, because this throw, while it does break the floor on Forgotten Realm, or you know, whenever the floor is breakable, it's a 1 plus 2 break. And this other throw is ridiculous because it's only 28 damage and he puts you down for +5. Aside from that, he has nothing. All he has left are generic throws. So he doesn't have a throw game, sadly. He has stuff from this, but this requires a mid to hit either on normal hit or counter hit in order for him to access that. And the short version of this, even though I'm going to come back to it, try to break with 1+2. Because when he does connect this, the 1 option deals this much damage, and the 2 option deals the exact same damage. And only the 1+2 option, which is this, launches you for a full combo. So you could gamble with breaking 1 or 2, but I would advise you to overall break 1+2 because that's what the Ganryus online are going to go for most of the time. So he doesn't have a throw game, but that doesn't mean that he can mix you up close. And mainly he's going to use this. Now he has some trashy lows like this and that. Yes, this is horrible. But for example, down forward 3 is his notorious low. +5 on hit, as you can see, if I could like reset it to display the frame data on the correct side. +5 on hit is going to be -12 on block. So you can only get it while standing 4. And the other low that he has is going to be down back 4. Down forward 3 doesn't crush highs that consistently, I found, but down back 4 does, of course. But it is going to be -2 on hit. So this is kind of like his generic, and it's going to be -13. Now, because of this, because of what I just said, Ganryu has other lows like this, like that, like his Snake Edge. All of these are launch punishable, but a solid Ganryu who's trying to stay safe, and he can certainly do that, is going to mainly use this and maybe that. It's because of this that I advise you to, in the neutral, low parry against Ganryu. If he's from stance, do not low parry, actually low block, because from stance he's going to have, not this, I hope I can remember the, yes, stuff like that. He kind of like charges at you with his head. From his sit stance he's going to have this barrel roll, which has huge amounts of active frames actually. So from stance, be it this or that, not that, this one, low block, because low parry is going to get you nowhere. And when he does have a low, it's likely going to be launch punishable like this one. But from neutral, actually low parry. Because while you could, of course, run into Ganryus that party with these lows online, if you're playing a solid Ganryu, he's likely going to rely on these, which do not give you a huge reward on block. So, because of this, try to low parry up close, and I'm going to give you kind of like a similar advice to what I said with Josie. Try to smell his lows and low parry them. Because stepping him up close is suicide. He does, like I said, have a slow jab, but it's much more plus on block and hit. And even forgetting all of that, his down forward one is fantastic. It covers sidestep right, so it covers his left very reliably. It's as you can see, +6 on hit, -5 on block, and that's because it has extensions. Okay, all of this. The final hit of this is high, as you can see, and you can duck it, but he can just like go 2, he can do the full thing, whatever. To cover the other side, he has down forward 4, which is 15 frames. If I could record it here. And this also has extensions. And as you can see, he crushes highs well after he does it, so on and so forth. This has this extension, for example, which ends in a mid and is going to be punishable. Short answer is he can cover both his sides very reliably and very well. So don't try to step him. And like I said, this is very good at tracking to both sides. If you really want to step left, because that's the side where his 13 frame down forward 1 doesn't cover, and he has to rely on the slightly slower 15 frame down forward 4 or other moves, but namely down forward 4 because it has good extensions. And because of that, like I said, up close, play the frame game with him. Utilize the fact that he doesn't have a 10 frame jab, use your own, know your frames, be smart with your poking, and try at the very earliest kind of like chance to create space between you and him, because that's where he's going to suffer. Again, up close, lows are good, but the throws are trash, sadly. I expected them to be much better. If you want to deal with lows, try to low parry them, because a good Ganryu is going to use the super safe ones. And if you're playing a party Ganryu, block them. From stance, do the exact opposite, block all the time, because low parry is going to get you nowhere. Try to play the frames and try to create space as soon as possible. From mid-range, Ganryu is still capable, but he starts becoming more risky. For example, this is a good mid, it has great reach, but it's punishable. Now, you might play a character that doesn't reach in order to punish it, because from this range here, King does reach, but a lot of other characters have crappy kind of like 12 frame punishers, which might not reach. The mix-up for this is going to be forward 2 to the 1, where he does that. And this is actually a plus on block move. As you can see, on hit, it is plus 12, so he gets a free headbutt afterwards. So, but you can duck this, and you can punish that. So he still has a mix-up on you, even though he's all the way, well, not all the way, he's kind of like 2 character spaces away. But the mix-up becomes a little bit more risky for him, because you can duck this plus on block, kind of like high clap. He has other ones. This, of course, looks very similar to his Ganryu Electric, the one that I talked about earlier, when it comes to his block punishment. But still, the overall principle still stands. He has no shortage of plus on block tools. I'm going to talk about those. A lot of which kind of like he can fish for counter hits with, because this is +1 on hit and block, and on counter hit, it puts him in that kind of like mix-up situation that I talked about, where he where he kind of like gets those multi-throws on you, or kind of like, not multi-throws as much as extensions. So, from mid-range, he can still mix you up. As you can see, the down forward 3 still reaches, but if he's a little bit further away, he's going to start whiffing, and that's where he's going to start to rely on either plus on block moves, of which he has no shortage, or, like I said, a little bit more riskier mix-ups in order to kind of like get in on you. And before I get to the final point, which is like the super far away game from this range, do not keep him away with highs. Do not keep him away with highs, because he has a lot of tools, kind of like this one, even though it's punishable, I believe, but he ducks very kind of like deep down when he does it, and like I said, he's overall kind of like tricky to hit with highs. If you're playing someone like Armor King, where you have a 12 frame mid or something, King doesn't have that. He's going to have to rely on his down forward 1, down forward 2 for this, or maybe even his shove, but even that has a very high hitbox, and it might actually whiff against him. But still, you get the point. Try to use mids to keep him out. If you're playing someone like Lee with a back 4, you're in luck. If you're playing Armor King, use down forward 4. If you're playing King, well, he actually has a lot of tools to make King's life hell. But I'm not going to say that he's kind of like better than King. I don't know, I'm not here to talk about that. So finally, once you're far away, this is where Ganryu is absolutely helpless. Poor guy has nothing. He has no approach tools. Now, you could, for example, say, like, this is a homing and it has an extension. I believe this is it, but the extension is punishable. It's not particularly quick at 21 frames. On its own, I believe it's going to be -8, so it's still safe. But kind of like running into it is going to be a little bit awkward, and the only while running move he has is this, while running 1+2. Now, massive advantage on hit. On block it's +9, but it's extremely linear. You can sidewalk it or sidestep it in either direction, and you're going to be fine. So the most effective way of combating Ganryu is to keep him away. If your character has good keep out, if your character is perfectly capable of like dealing damage from range, so to speak, kind of like dealing explosive, kind of like counter hits or whatnot, especially if they're mid, again, I stress, you're going to give Ganryu a run for his money. He's going to find it extremely difficult to get in on you. He's going to have to rely on more punishable, more risky stuff to get in. So again, run down up close, try to refrain from highs, but at the same time you have to make use of your jabs. Play the poking game with him, be aware of your frames, and outsmart him in the pokes. You're not going to be able to step him that much because his tracking is fantastic. If you really want to step left. Out of stance, which I'm going to talk about, that you're actually going to have to step right. Out of strength, you're going to have to step left. But overall stepping is something I don't really advise in this matchup. play the frame game up close. Once you're far away, try to keep him away with mids. And be wary that his mix-up starts getting more and more kind of like tricky. Again, like I said, up close it doesn't have a throw game. And from far away, if you can keep him out, that is the most optimal way to combat him. Of course, sadly, it doesn't apply to King all that much because King himself kind of like lives and dies up close. So he's going to have to engage him head on and kind of like win against him in the poke game. He doesn't have a 12 frame mid, so he's going to have to, like I said, well, outsmart him in the poking game up close overall. Talking a little bit more about the specifics, first I want to share a couple of super weird things that this character has. This string, on the surface it looks like a crappy string. First of all, it's a jab string that starts from a 12 frame, not from 10. And as you can see, when he does the full thing, he's minus 18, so he's launch punishable. You can duck under it, so on and so forth. Now, the weird thing here is, and again, this is one of the instances where you're going to see where he breaks the rules in very weird and unconventional ways, is you know this move from King. It's his full crouch down forward one. It's kind of like his snake edge. I'm not particularly interested in its offensive capabilities as much as I am interested in its defensive capabilities as a full crouch launcher. Because if you look at the frame data indicator, the status, it stays as crouching. This switches to standing once I input the move. This is the same, but this is a full crouch launcher. So obviously the idea I had is, I want to crouch under this and I want to launch with this. Well, like that it worked. If he doesn't connect with me at all, it works. But if I block a hit, the move just refuses to come out. I have no idea why this happens. This is extremely weird and difficult to explain. How does he kind of like take away my ability to do a move simply based on the fact that I blocked one of his? But full crouch down forward 4 still connects. So it's not like all full crouch down forward moves stop working, but still. Now the reason this is not completely useless is because, like I said, he has his down forward 2, which is this one. It's his 16 frame standing launcher, and usually it's minus 11 as you can see there, because 16 frames. The problem is, even though it's only minus 16, he can keep this pseudo safe by doing these afterwards. And when he does, he interrupts my 10 frame, as you can see. So obviously the idea I had is, let me crouch under this and launch him, and I can't do it. So you have to settle for punishing both with a dick jab. Okay? Second kind of like piece of weirdness is these two strings. They're the exact same thing. Let's go with this one. It's the longer version, but he can like do 4-4 immediately without doing the 3 first. And even though after the second hit I am at, as you can see, plus 11 or plus 12, and I'm forced into crouch while standing 4 whiffs. Yep, while standing 4 whiffs. Armor Kings while standing 2, which is 12 frames, connects from here, but as you can see, sometimes he's only minus 11 and not actually minus 12. Final thing I want to talk about, which is kind of like also super weird. I don't believe he has any other instance of this, but this is a mid string where all hits are safe. That's right. Mid and a mid at the end where all hits are safe. So just to show this here, mid minus 9, mid minus 8. You can't step this. You can't interrupt this. As you can see there, he actually counter hits you. King here himself doesn't have a left punch parry to kind of like deal with the last hit. So the only way to deal with this is either reverse the second punch if your character has that ability, or you have to backdash the second hit and launch him. And this is going to be, of course, very difficult in a real match. The thing here, this string is accessed from full crouch, and it's 18 frames on the first hit. It always says 17, but it always connects on the 18th frame, I see. Or whatever. So, like, maybe this is not the biggest deal in the world, But still, keep in mind, from full crouch, he has a mid, fully safe string where the only weakness is either reversals or, like I said, the ability to backdash the second hit. So he's going to have other weird stuff, but these are kind of like the highlights. And now I'm going to move on to his other stuff. So now I'm going to talk about his plus on block moves. In addition to his jab, and one specific string that I'm going to talk about later when I talk about stance transitions, he has the following. This we talked about already, forward 2 to the 1, which is the mix-up for his forward 2. And this is normally plus 4, and it's much more plus on hit, of course, guaranteeing him a headbutt. Second thing I want to talk about is his down 4, 25 frames, sorry, mid, and he doesn't have to go into sit. He can just do it raw without going to sit, but the reason I want to show this is his sit stance, it goes under dick jabs, okay? So, and he forces you into crouch, so you kind of like have to resort to other things. This down 1 plus 2 is, like I said, normally plus 1 on block, plus 1 on hit, and on counter hit, it puts you in another kind of like hug situations where hit situation where you have like 1, 2, or 1 plus 2 to break. They're different from his other like Tai Chi thing, but overall the 1 plus 2 option deals the most damage. He has this string, which again he doesn't have to go into sit, and it's homing actually, because the first 2 hits high are both homing. And he ends it with something very similar to his down 1, and he goes into sit. And this salt upper is a safe plus on block launcher, but it's extremely slow, as you can see. He does crush a little bit while he does it. See, he kind of like ducked under my jab, but it's plus 5, and it's not going to be used for block punishment at all. This is going to be like fishing for launchers or whatever. These are the most important. Like I said, don't forget his jab. And one thing that I'm going to talk about later is this 2-1 string, because he has 2-1-2, which is going to be punishable, the final hit that is. And he can do 2-1-3 plus 4 and go into Tai Chi, this new stance that he has. And if I record it here, I'm going to show you that it is going to be plus 1 on block. So this is going to be his best transition into this stance. Some of the individual moves worthy of a highlight. This can sometimes be used as a whiff punisher by Ganryu players. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but as you can see, it does boast a little bit of range. Be mindful, even though it is a high and you can duck it. Despite that, it is minus 12 on block. This is his power crush. Nothing fantastic, but sometimes Ganryu players can kind of like use this to get in, and it is generic at minus 13. This is forward 2. Now this is safe on its own, it's a mid. On normal hit, it gives him plus frames, but on counter hit, come on, he goes into this hug position where he has 1-2, 1 plus 2 extensions. So they're going to fish for counter hits with this. Again, this is one of the strategies from a little bit longer of a range, but as you can see, the range there is not infinite. And finally, this is his, I did talk about this already, I believe. This is his backswing blow. It leaves you back turned. From here, I believe it is best to, if you get hit by this, try to mitigate the damage by ducking, in case the Ganryu goes for like a full-on blown exploit of a combo. And when you do block it, it is generally minus, as you can see, minus 13, minus 14, but sometimes if it connects late, it might be like minus 13, so just like stick to your minus 12 Punisher. Some strings I found worthy of highlighting. Again, these are not the best strings that he has, and this is not everything that he's going to have punishable in his strings. For that, I recommend you watch some block punishment guide or something. But these are kind of like strings that you will run into, especially if you're playing online. First one is this. Now this is called the Ganryu combo. Ganryu players kind of like love this, the ones that I did face. And he definitely can do just the first 2 hits without doing the full thing, where he's going to be safe at -7. But if he does go for the full thing, you have to keep in mind that he's launch punishable at -16. This is his wall ender. If you do happen to block this because he did it where he doesn't deserve it, it is -14. This is the Ganryu kind of like junkyard. It starts with a back 2. He has back 2, 1, 2, and back 2, 1, down 2. So he either does this with a final low, and this is going to be a launch punishable low, or he can do the mid option, which is again going to be punishable, or he can negate both and go into stance, but he's going to be minus on block, and this is not one of the best transitions into stance. And finally, the string that I chose to highlight is this. It starts with a mid, with a homing, sorry. So this might be kind of like a reason for him to use it, but the final hit is again -14. So, in order to talk about his stance, I'm going to talk about the transitions he gets into it first. This is the new stance he got in Tekken 7, Tai Chi, or however it is pronounced, and it has crouching status, like I said. The quickest option out of this is going to be his 1 at 11 frames. I'm going to talk about the stance itself, but first I'm going to talk, like I said, about the transitions into it. Best transition is going to be this. I already mentioned this. This puts him at +1 when he goes into the stance, okay? And this is the short version of... He takes forever to get out of the stance. Sorry, missed it. Of this string, okay? And this, if I record it here, this is high, high, mid. Final hit is punishable. It forces you into crouch and you get a while standing 4 guaranteed. But what I'm most concerned with, and this is going to come into play later, is that you can't step the final hit. Okay? You have to block it. And you're going to see why this comes into play a little bit later on. So this is his best transition. He's going to be at +1 when he goes into stance. Second option, this. 1 + 2 into Tai Chi. This is usually 1 + 2, 1 + 2, which is -13 on block, I believe. -13, so he can kind of like create a mind game and go into stance, and he's going to be minus on block, like I showed you. And this is the transition that I talked about earlier from his kind of like junkyard pseudo type move. And the final option is going to be this up forward 1 + 2 into Tai Chi, which is usually safe on its own anyway. Because the quickest attack is 11 frames, and of course he has crouching status, depending on who you're playing, if you have a 12 frame mid or not, you want Ganryu to be at least at -2 in order for you to be able to guaranteed kind of like interrupt him if he goes for something. But that being said, he's going to have numerous options to kind of like to counterplay around your retaliation, and I'm going to talk about those right now. So when it comes to his stance, sadly he has a lot of options out of this, so I'm going to have to kind of like slim down a little bit in order to be able to explain it. Again, the quickest option is an 11 frame high. Now, gladly or luckily for us, first of all, on block this is -3, you can duck it. On hit, it's only +8, nothing special, and on counter hit, it's also +8 with nothing special. So that's good. It's not a particularly kind of like dangerous option. Second thing I want to highlight is this mid here. This is 14 frames, safe at -9, as you can see. Normal hit, it knocks down, and on counter hit, it launches. Okay, so this is dangerous. And this is homing, as you can see. Okay, so this is worth highlighting. And he has this power crush, which, like I said, on normal hit puts us in this kind of like rock paper scissors kind of like situation where you have to guess. Not really rock paper scissors, but okay. If I try to retaliate with something huge, for example, my down forward 2-1, he gets me. If I do just down forward 2, I have time to block. And of course lows and whatever can interrupt it. And this is definitely not safe on block, because it's a power crush, but only minus 12, not minus 13, as you can see, well, at least not all the time. So far, against all of these, I can dick jab, and this is from his best transition where he's +1 on block. Of course, if you're on hit, stuff is going to be much more complicated. And I have time to block. Problem is, even though he's going to have other options, look at this. He has manual low parry from the stance. Without even discussing further options, like even if you don't want to discuss this, maybe this was it. If I could record it here, let me just check. No, not this one. Yes, this one. See how he ducks under my dick jab? So generally, dick jabbing is not going to be like the most fantastic option. Now this option on its own, like, be wary about how you try to punish him, because he can be very weird and awkward to punish in certain situations. But regardless, short answer is, without kind of like going into all the transitions he has, like for example, from this he can press 3+4 once again to go into sit. From here he can kind of like roll back, he can access his other lows, he can do this one, he can have this weird ass kind of like charge at your feet with his head, which is why I said don't really low parry when he's in stance. Similar situation to this barrel roll, which has a lot of active frames. See the active frames? It says 25 to almost 60. So whenever you think it's safe to let go of block, don't let go of block, okay? Short version is, the best option against Tai Chi stance is going to be sidestep right. Sorry. Like that. And even this. The best option is going to be sidestep right. The only thing that's going to hit us is this knockdown mid. Now, what I like about this, now of course, if you really know that he's going to do this, again, you can interrupt with that. You can counter hit him out of it. But the nice thing about this is, like I said, Ganryu's weakness is approach. So if he knocks you down with this and you roll, you're almost in safety again. You're almost here. So eating this is not the worst thing in the world, because it might kind of like get you out of the Ganryu pressure. So short version is Tai Chi. If you want to deal with lows, block. I recommend sidestep right. If you reached kind of like the mind game with the Ganryu player where you know that he's going to go for this, you can either dick jab it or interrupt it, or if you really want to, reversal it. The second stance, which is legacy and far less important, is this sit stance. Again, be wary, it's very evasive. He ducks under dick jabs. As you can see, he has airborne status when he does it. And the options out of here are not as kind of like daunting when it comes to kind of like mix-ups. The Ganryus you're going to face are going to go for this, okay? This gives him a full launch, and it's launch punishable on block. This is sit 2. But first, the transitions into it, of course, short of manual transitions from other stances, or the other stance, which is Tai Chi, are going to be this. Down 1, which I already talked about. If he goes into sit, he's at +5, but it doesn't really matter because, like, he doesn't have super kind of like quick options out of sit. This back 1, 1, 1. Again, I talked about this, that this ends in almost the exact same hit at his down 1, and this leaves him at +5, and he goes into sit. He can kind of like choose not to go into sit. And this up 4, 3+4, which leaves him at +13. So I'm going to discuss the options from this one. So the options are the 2, which, like I said, is going to be what the Ganryu players you're going to face likely are going to go for, because it is a launcher, and as you can see, it is almost kind of like a stagger low at minus 17. So almost everybody can launch it. And this is the quickest option actually, because as you can see, it comes out in 19 frames. And because he's at plus 13 and he forces you into crouch from this kind of like transition, which is up 4, 3 plus 4, this is his best transition into the stance, in terms of frames at least. You're going to be forced into crouch, like I said. And so this is uninterruptible, okay? You cannot do anything about this other than block it. Now, other options include this barrel roll, which, like I said, be wary, the plus frames are huge here, okay? So whenever you're kind of like far away from him, don't let go of block. And of course, punishing it is going to be super awkward. But I'm going to show you something cool in a second. This trolley thing, where of course if he does the full thing and he hits nothing, he's going to squirm there for kind of like a considerable amount of time, enough for me to get even something like that on him. I can even get a guaranteed burning knuckle, a little bit of a tip. And the only kind of like option to cover you ducking is this, okay? Now this is safe, right? So generally against this stance, first of all, you gotta remember, even though this is definitely a chunky mid, it knocks you back into relative safety. So Ganryu, if he lands this on you, he's kind of like at a loss because you're back far away and he has to get in on you again. But what's cool about this is, short of this option, which again, this is like the best transition, this is like plus 13, okay? Now, just before I kind of like forget, of course, this is Ganryu. He has a lot of like weird splits into, you know, this whatever parry stuff. So I'm not going to discuss all of that. But the short version is, short of this thing, which is launch punishable on block, okay? All the other options are actually beatable by, you would not guess it, but jumping. Yes, that's right. Check this out. And of course the final option, I can even kind of like style on him, like I said, with a burning knuckle punisher. So if sit stance, like if you're playing kind of like a long set against a Ganryu player and he's being creative with his sit stance transitions, generally block low. You can even kind of like fuzzy guard this. Like I'm looking for it, and I can definitely kind of like stand up to block in time. But you kind of like, you get the overall strategy, block the low, and for all the other options, you can get away with jumping and kind of like surprise the Ganryu player with your amazing tech. Or just like I said, if you crouch and you eat the mid and you're knocked back into this range, it's not super bad. The final thing I want to talk about is kind of like the extensions off of his best pokes. Again, I stress his down forward 3 tracks both sides, so kind of like stepping him it will not yield you as huge of a reward. But just for the sake of understanding, down forward 1 has good extensions in the term of delayability. Down forward 1 on its own is -5. The first extension you can have is the 4, and this is delayable, and as you can see, it is punishable at -13. But he can tack on the final hit. Okay, but gladly doesn't do that much on counter hit. And even though it's safe, it is, as you can see, a high. Okay, so if you make a habit, of course, this is all assuming that you're playing a super kind of like competent Ganryu that knows what you're doing. First of all, he can just like poke you with down forward 3 all day and not worry about your stepping at all. But if it comes to it, if he's really keen on kind of like tracking you with mids, if you're stepping to your right and he's doing his down forward 1, make a habit out of interruption, because it's going to be in your favor. Because if he goes for this full thing, even if I get a counter hit, like it's only 12 damage and +8, like okay, fine, big deal. The other side, however, even though down forward 4 on its own is like ridiculously minus, the extension, which is the down forward 4-1, actually jails. I can't duck this. See? It cannot be ducked. It leaves him at -9, so he's perfectly safe. And I don't think he can delay it. And the final hit is a punishable mid at -14. Again, this, you might say that kind of like, okay, like step right, I don't know, I really don't see this kind of like as a win for you in either scenario where you step. I still stand by my statement that I think you should outframe him up close, make use of the fact that his jab is slow and so on and so forth, but of course be wary of your highs getting crushed and whatnot, and generally just stay away. And glad I didn't forget, just his rage art is generic, but his rage drive is actually a low launcher, okay? The thing is, even if I block it, he's safe at -6, which is again more of a reason for me to say that you should always low parry in neutral against Ganryu as opposed to low block, because like I said, either you're going to block something that's only -12, or you might end up blocking something that's actually safe, like this rage art here. Rage drive, sorry. So I believe this is all I have to say. This might be kind of like double as a generic, as a generals plus specifics. Like I said, I'm not going to go into like the all in-depth block punishment stuff because it's not fun and it's not going to... I didn't even remember half of it. Like, I went through his move list multiple times, I didn't remember any of it. You can find a block punishment guide on your own, I am sure. Again, up close, play the frame game. Remember, his jab is slow, his 10-frame headbutt is punishable. Kind of like the stuff that I highlighted here should be enough up until kind of like the super high level of play against Ganryu, I believe. From stance, step right. From his sit stance, make use of like the jump tech that I showed you. Be wary of those kind of like string cancels and whatnot. Up here, remember that he has to get a little bit more risky. Up close, he doesn't have a throw game. Low parry in neutral from stance, low block, or side step right. And generally from range, try to keep him out as much as you can. And be wary, your highs are going to get crushed. Your mids might get crushed. Use lows when you can, so on and so forth. And that's going to conclude it. I thank you all very much for watching. Take care and goodbye.